Hey guys, and welcome back to another League of Legends video. Today we're going to be looking at champions that Riot regrets releasing, and these are mainly champions that got heavily nerfed, needed a lot of reworks, 1, 2, or maybe more, and just in general gave Riot a little bit of a headache. So hopefully you guys enjoy the content, sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. League of Legends has been around for a very long time, and Riot Games is very far from being perfect, but what they've got good at is listening to the player base and improving their game based on the opinions and suggestions of the whole community. Today we're going to be looking back at champions that Riot regrets releasing a little bit too early because of their sheer overloaded kits or very high base stats, and other champions that couldn't really come close to matching the others, which prompted Riot for immediate performance of hotfixes or nerfs, or maybe after a few months, a rework. Kicking it off, we're going to be talking about Zoe, which has a very unique mechanic which gives her a chance to have whatever she needs in any given situation, and most of the time just gives her some extra power that leads her to being super hard to play against. And of course, if you haven't realized what I'm talking about, it is her passive, Spell Thief. In the end, it is a passive that stood around with Zoe, but the RNG mechanic which gives Zoe the power of redemption or just gives her a bit of clear wave with a proto belt is pretty hard to balance, which prompts Riot with balancing her base stats instead of trying to fix this unbalanced ability. The strange thing about her is that despite having a noticeable advantage with her base stats and her ability effects, she hasn't been nerfed enough or reworked enough to be completely balanced yet. And I remember the time when random players I haven't heard of has suddenly reached Challenger, just maining Zoe. It's pretty insane, and just having an RNG based ability in general within League of Legends is kind of a hit or miss. Our next champion is LeBlanc. You may have seen this one coming, but on release, LeBlanc was one of the higher skill cap champions and had immense outplay potential, and just straight up raw damage. The two aspects, however, of this old LeBlanc that made her a terror to deal with is her old Sigil of Silence that silences her enemy when LeBlanc procs the mark with another ability that just prevented any sort of counterplay or trades from going on. Not to mention her base damage was also higher than it is now, so with insane base damage, no counterplay thanks to her silence, and a little good old item that you guys may remember as Deathfire Grasp, she was kind of just a walking nightmare. Nothing to it. Obviously we know she went through insane amount of nerfs and later reworked just to be reverted, and if that's not the definition of giving Riot a headache, I'm not too sure what is. Moving on from there, we have Aphelios. Aphelios on release was just crazy. He wasn't that long ago, so I'm sure you can remember that he was good at everything. He had high DPS, godly burst, AoE damage, and on top of it all, he was just super effective in both long and short range combat. Aphelios is special as a champion, as the player will have to get used to his skill set that is a lot more complicated than others, but on release it was a bit different, since no matter what ability or weapon you were using at the time, it wouldn't matter. You would just explode the enemy no matter what you did. Onward from there, we have Darius. Darius is already hard to play against when you're a newer player in the game, as the concept of kiting and positioning hasn't quite set in yet. But when Darius was just released, he was pretty much just a free pentakill machine without much downside to him. He rarely lost trades in lane due to his high DPS and even his burst damage back then. To top it all off, he doesn't need to build damage. He can straight up be tanky and still go around melting everyone. We also know that after his release, if you really want to hear a headache story, but most of you have probably already experienced it, is the Juggernaut rework, and Darius was a part of that. And not only was he a part of that, it happened right before Worlds, and it took Worlds by storm. Darius was skyrocketing, and he was a nightmare within the professional scene, and when something's a nightmare against its pros, you know it's a nightmare for us normal players. It was absolutely mind-blowing, and like I said, if Darius isn't a definition of a headache, I don't know what is. He kind of still is till today, but nothing was like peak Juggernaut rework and release Darius. It was just mind-blowing what happened. Onward from there, this one might be a little bit of a surprise, but I'm putting Braum on our list. Now, Braum doesn't really come to people's mind when you say overpowered, but when you think about stability and reliability, Braum is quite the perfect fit. He has been a part of a competitive scene ever since he was released, and that's for a good reason. He is super tanky, has great supportive capabilities, and is great at trading, engaging, and disengaging. He isn't that hard to use either, and some of the key things to note is that his basic stats are quite good right off the bat. And the thing about Braum is that he's taking over the support role. I'm not saying he's doing that right now. He's not overpowered, but he's been doing that over and over, season after season. He just always proves to be a really solid support champion, which in itself isn't horrible. But when he's taking up a huge portion of that support category, right, he's overshadowing a lot of other support champions. It can be a problem. You know, I'm not saying it's devastating, but it can be a problem. Anyway, I'm going to move on from here because this could be a video topic on its own. It's mainly about how a very popular and dominant champion can overshadow others and reduce their play rate increasingly. And the problem with that is that, I guess, what's the point of having all these champions in League of Legends if we only see a handful of them in each of our games? Like I said, could be its own video. Let's move on from here. Next on our list, this one is a little bit more obvious, and I am sure you guys understand why this has given Riot quite the headache. And this guy, our little old cat, Rengar. So, I mean, if you're a long-time player, and especially a ADC main, you know what nightmares and PTSD looks like if you've ever played against a Rengar. He is a one-shot beast, and he has went through a lot. He's went through a rework, or let's say a semi-rework to some of his abilities that ended up getting reverted. He's been tweaked multiple times. He's had like vision indicators, not even just one semi-rework, right? He's went through ability-based reworks more than once and a lot of tweaking over the year, and he is a nightmare to balance because he needs to retain his one-shot, his one-shot gem. You know, he's got to jump in there out of nowhere, assassinate you, and get out. That is who he is. He is an assassin jungler. But on the flip side, when he goes invisible and jumps at you out of nowhere, it can feel like there was no counterplay, and Riot is forever trying to leave him possibly a one-shot killer, but also give you a chance to counterplay, and that has been a struggle and still is till today. In conclusion, there are a lot more champions than this that Riot probably regrets releasing or had a very chaotic mess. I mean, look at release Kassadin or release Jax, but those are people that we've covered over and over, and those are things that every YouTube video has. Any League of Legends YouTuber has covered those types of topics. We wanted to dive into some champions that are a little more recent, a little bit more vague, or even a little bit controversial. So a lot of you may even disagree with their power level or how they caused Riot a headache, but you can let me know what you think in the comments down below. Feel free to leave any feedback while you're down there. If you did enjoy the content, make sure to hit that like button, consider subscribing, and yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one.